Our next speaker has almost 25 years of work experience. Mr. Ruhail Mohammed is the CFO at Engro Corporation Limited and Engro Fertilizers Limited, and is a board member of the various Engro concerns and associated with this group for the past 15 years. Mr. Ruhail is a chartered financial analyst and has an MBA in finance from IBA. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ruhail Mohammed.
Honorable Chairman, Honorable Speaker. Okay, the agenda I have today is that I was given a few small topics, and in the end, people wanted to talk about went through a large expansion a couple of years ago, and the way we went about raising $1 billion for our fertilizer expansion. So I'll take you through this presentation and free to take any questions in the end. Okay. If I were to start, what is the ultimate objective of management? Now, traditional management text will tell you that the ultimate objective of management is to maximize shareholder wealth. There is obviously a lot of things that come into it besides the pure financial numbers, and even if you talk about things like CSR as an example, eventually that will add to your shareholder wealth. And therefore, management must not lose sight of this, that eventually everything has to be geared towards that. Now, as far as the CFO role is concerned, I've talked about a few things. This is over and above the normal work the CFO already does, including things like closing, quarterly closing, treasury management, IT services, etc. So at least in our organization, the CFO role is being part of the top management team to shape strategy, both at the management level as well as at the board level. And we take active part in that, and the CFO has a very strong voice in that. The next one is key performance parameters. We have a very strong management reporting system with detailed analysis, etc., and the CFO would take it up with individual business leaders to see whether these parameters have been met and challenge them as such. The next one we talked about is challenging the business leaders for efficiency and improvement. We've now rolled across a Six Sigma project across the organization where each division has a target of achieving certain savings, and whether it be process improvement, time improvement, cost improvement through these projects, and the CFO really drives that part as well. Ensure return on capital, whether it is part of a small project within a particular company or as being the holding company where we have investments in different projects which I'll just talk about. Ensuring that return is part of the CFO's responsibility. We have a formal process for that, a reappraisal process for a smaller amount, it's a particular type of thing. Over a $10 million project, there's a board investment committee which reviews and those reappraisals as well. Finally, risk management, which talked about, the other speakers have talked about, but more particularly in terms of whether it be government policy, whether it be traditional things like foreign exchange, insurance, and so on and so forth. The other one, which is not part here, which has been mentioned by a couple of speakers, obviously, the communication with stakeholders, whether it be the government, and especially if you're a listed company with investors, foreign investors, local investors, and the lot, basically. And of course, if you are a large borrower like ourselves, then obviously with the banks as well becomes very critical as well. Okay. Moving on, what were the global trends and the effect on Pakistan? I think Tareen Saab has done a very good job, so I'll just simply skip through it a little bit. Basically, with the fall in GDP in the 2007-8 and beginning of 2009, obviously our own GDP fell substantially and therefore went into a recessionary environment. The deleveraging in the world obviously reduced the access to capital. For example, for a company like us, which were expanding very fast, we found out that suddenly international commercial loans were not available. ECAs, which were very keen to lend to Pakistan, suddenly dropped out and they were not willing to lend to Pakistan. And eventually, even because all our borrowings are benchmarked to the GOP borrowing, when the GOP cost of funds went up, then obviously our own cost of funds went up. And FDIs obviously started going down as well. What happened with falling asset prices when we had a lot of portfolio investors in our stock as well? I remember Tareen Saab and myself, we were in February in Singapore at the Merrill Lynch conference, speaking to a lot of investors, and most of them had, at least before that, started pulling out investments from the stock market because not necessarily anything to do with Pakistan, which was also a part of the reason, but mainly because when their own portfolio had to contract because of margin calls elsewhere, they had to withdraw money from the stock market, obviously compounding the effect on the Pakistani stock markets as well. The financial sector, obviously the deleveraging impact that Tareen have talked about, we as in the Pakistani banks were quite insulated as such. Although, having said that, I'll talk about it, corporates like us, with which we maintained our rating, because of the risk awareness of the local banks, we sort of got in a way of credit because they were the only ones who wanted to lend to companies like us. The higher commodity prices obviously led to higher fiscal and current account deficits. You all know about that. I think the war on terror, in a way, while it is overall negative to the economy, obviously has led to indirect benefits in terms of the bilateral and multilateral flows with the objective of helping Pakistan get over this issue. There were a lot of flows which obviously supported the exchange rate as well as development expenditure. Okay, so if we go back to our own company and what we did as a strategy, and this strategy we made in the early 2000s, and the rationale or the thinking behind this was that we should be in businesses where Pakistan is globally competitive in or is shielded from international competition. And I'll tell you about the businesses we've gone into, and to venture into opportunities that overlap with our own strengths. And for example, at Engro we said, what are our own strengths? Things like project management, engineering expertise, ability to raise capital, knowledge of agriculture, and so on and so forth. And we took those strengths and overlapped it with areas where Pakistan would be competitive in, and that's how we came up with the areas we would be doing business in. And the broad areas which we identified were fertilizer, which were our core business, food and agriculture, power and infrastructure, and we had a niche business in petrochemical which we would be continuing. And what did we do in each of them? And this is starting from, let's say, 2005 time frame and continuing till now, is that we did a major expansion in fertilizer, almost $1 billion or so. We've gone into foods. You've probably heard of the Allbirds and Taran brands. This is a venture into dairy. And we will be going into other businesses like rice very soon. We've almost invested something like $150 million in the food business already, including 2 plants, one in Satgar, Sahiwal, we've now launched ice cream. Power generation, our first IPP, which was based on Burgate gas at Kazarpur, is now up and about. In fact, it came on stream 3 months before the required date as such. We have now embarked upon the next power initiative, which is we want to develop the third coal field, and we entered into a joint venture with the government of Sindh for developing that field, and which will be dovetailed with a power plant as well. This is going to be a huge venture, and I think if it does happen, there'll probably be a country-turning venture as such as well. In petrochemicals, we've had a business with the Japanese PVC